think a new team has arrived in the AFC West, and their name is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah.
Herbert stops, launches deep. Jalen Guyton, he's got it!
Herbert fires open, making the grab. Mike Williams down the sideline. 17-yard line, look out again. Carr, intercepted.
And we are back with another episode of the Shock Therapy Podcast brought to you by the Say It Again Network. I'm Tyler Lawrence. You can find me at LAC Masterable. Zach Alfers is my co-host at Zach Alfers on Twitter. What's up, Zach? You ready to get into some Raiders?
What's going on? I guess so. Let's break them down. We have to. They're in the division. They beat us the last time we were out on the football field. So I'm excited for our Raiders matchups this year, at the very least, just so we can get some payback from how they ended our season last year. It's left such a sour taste in my mouth. A big part of why I'm excited about 2023 is to be able to beat up on some Raiders. It's something we've done for a long time. And then that last game was just, like I said, sour taste left in my mouth. I want to erase that as fast as we can. Also, I don't know if you know, but your video's not on.
My video's not on. That's interesting.
No, I just see a black screen.
All right, I'll get the video going up here in a minute. But so we had some additions to the Raiders. Let's just get to the big one, Davante Adams. How big of a trade was that? Trading away essentially their 2022 first round pick and their 2022 second round pick for Davante Adams and signing a 5-year, $141 million contract.
I mean, I think it's huge. I'm all for trading draft picks, which they're just, lottery tickets. You really don't know. Even if you have number one overall, it's a lottery ticket. And so to be able to trade those in for the best receiver in the last 5 years, who doesn't look like he's slowing down any bit, pairing him with his college teammate who he has a really good rapport with in Derek Carr. It's huge for a Raiders team that was 9-7, their first winning season in a long time. A team that was not quite good enough to get into the, make a run in the playoffs, but just good enough to, keep their fans' hearts in it. I think it's they're in a really kind of a limbo year, and I think that was a really good signing to bring all the excitement back. That Raider fan base, as much as you want to say about them, they love their team. So that's a huge trade, a huge player to get behind. That's going to bring a lot of Raider fans out, which they already travel really well. They already support their team tremendously. So Davante Adams is going to put a lot of people in the seats. That's a huge trade.
They're not playing too far from home. Derek Carr and Davante Adams played together at Fresno State for 3 or 4 years before they ended up getting drafted. He knew he was going to Las Vegas before anybody else, because he went and bought a house right next to Derek Carr before the trade even happened. So they knew that was in the works. They offered Davante Adams the same amount of money the Packers did, and he still turned down a Hall of Fame quarterback to go essentially play with his buddy from his college days. We'll see if it works out. Davante Adams is one of the best in the game. He might be the best wide receiver. Getting a little bit older, I think he's like 29 years old. Signing him to a 5-year contract at his age, he's still very much in his prime. Typically, that's a long time for a wide receiver entering his 30s. But, I mean, the guy's an animal. He catches everything thrown his way. Teams' defenses bracket coverages to him, and it just doesn't matter. He's going to be a problem. He's going to be a major, major problem in the division. Somebody I'm not really too stoked to see twice a year. The other key additions that the Raiders have, they signed wide receiver Demarcus Robinson from Kansas City, wide receiver Mac Hollins from Miami, wide receiver Keelan Cole from the Jets. They signed tight end Jacob Hollister from Jacksonville, fullback Jacob Johnson from New England, running back Brandon Bolden, another New England special teams stud. Defensive tackle Bile Nichols from Chicago, defensive tackle Vernon Butler from Buffalo, another defensive tackle Kyle Pico, inside linebacker Jayon Brown, I think he's from Tennessee, inside linebacker Micah Kaiser, edge rusher Chandler Jones. That's a big one. We'll talk about that in a little bit. 3 years, $51 million. 32-year-old player, still a really, really productive edge rusher. They grabbed Kyler Fackrell from us last year. Cornerback Anthony Averett, Darius Phillips, Jerron Harmon. They traded for Jarrett Stidham, and they have Nick Mullins, and then they traded for Rocky Sin. That's a lot of additions to this team. This team looks totally different on paper than they did last season. It's kind of crazy to see how much turnover they had with a changing coaching staff.
It's huge, but they needed something different. The Raiders of the last decade have just been so stale. It's just, they beat teams they shouldn't, lose games they shouldn't, and that's just not a good structure to build around. And so now they got some new pieces, they got some new faces in there, and we'll see what the product they have to turn in one day looks like.
So for all of that turnover that they had, they only re-signed 4 of their own players. It's not really a re-sign. It's more of like an extension for Hunter Renfrow, who's getting paid his worth because he's turned into one of the best route runners in the league, in my opinion. He's got that special route that's kind of made up for him where he fakes like he's going to the flat, then he comes back in, then he goes back out to the flat, or vice versa. It's a big goal line, big end zone, red zone type of play for them. And then they also signed just a 1-year contracts. They re-signed Brandon Parker, Jonathan Hankins, and Jermaine Illuminor. I didn't think the Raiders' offensive line was all that good. They seem to be running it back with a handful of them. In terms of the draft, they drafted offensive guard Dylan Parham in the 3rd round. I think this is a player who's going to find a way to start early, really, really quickly. Dylan Parham's a phenomenal player. They also drafted Zamir White in the 4th round from Georgia, defensive tackle Neil Farrell from LSU, defensive tackle Matthew Butler from Tennessee, and then their 2 7th-round picks. I don't know much about Thayer Munford and Britton Brown. They didn't really have a whole lot in terms of draft picks, but I feel like they really loaded up on the defensive line and free agency and in the draft. So this team looks totally different. Their biggest losses, Zay Jones left for Jacksonville. Brian Edwards was traded basically for pennies, a 5th-round pick. Marcus Mariota went and found a place to go start for at least 1 season. Casey Hayward, cornerback, we know very, very well, is also fallen to Atlanta. You have defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson, who went to Seattle. Alec Ingold left for Miami. Brandon Faxon, Indy. Nick Kwiatkowski, I didn't see where he ended up going. Solomon Thomas, and then they traded away edge rusher Unique Ngakoue and released Kyle Littleton. So a lot of turnover. This team really starts for them with their run game, at least this season, but they did not pick up Josh Jacobs' 5th-year option, which is a little surprising, even for a running back, because I feel like he's been very, very productive when he's been on the field. What are they going to do at running back next season? Is Zamir White going to be their guy?
For 2023 or beyond, after Josh Jacobs, or you're talking about
after
this season?
Josh Jacobs. Yeah, like what's the plan for after Josh Jacobs, do you think is?
Yeah, it seems for whatever reason that the Raiders organization is not in love with Josh Jacobs for whatever reason. I think he's a really good player. I think he's right below the top tier of running backs in this league, but he's a very, very good, solid running back 1. And he has a lot of depth, so he's not going to be putting on, he doesn't have to take on the brunt of the work like a traditional bell cow running back would, because he has a lot of running mates. Kenyon Drake is a really good all-around running back too, who could be starting for some teams if given the opportunity. Zamir White is a tremendous talent. We'll have to see what he can do in this league, but I think he's up and coming. It's just a matter of time having him develop his rhythm before he's a guy who can take running back one snaps for you. And then Brandon Bolden gives them tremendous depth. I think he's mostly going to be a special return or a special team specialist for them. But to have 4 guys that you can go to in a pinch at a position that is known for getting banged up, that you very rarely make it through a full season with your top 2, top 3 guys all playing in 16 games. To have that flexibility at a position that no doubt is going to be banged up along the course of a 17-game season, I think gives them a lot of options there, because they are a team that likes to get physical. They like to run the ball. They have a tremendous receiving core depth, but I think it starts running the football over there in Las Vegas.
And, I think that their head coach is really going to work out for them. Josh McDaniels, he went to Denver for a couple seasons. It just kind of didn't pan out the way that he really wanted it to. And then he went back to New England. New England's always had a strong run game. Bill Belichick really believes in it. And granted, while you've got teams afraid of Tom Brady for most of their career, you look at the list of running backs that have come out of New England, and they just turn them out like no other. And so I think Josh McDaniels is really going to utilize him really well. But I also don't think that they can find mid-round running backs very easily. The Patriots can. And if Josh McDaniels has learned anything from his time being offensive coordinator under Bill Belichick for 20 years or something like that, I feel like Josh McDaniels has been their offensive coordinator for so long. He's going to bring some of that offensive play style to the Raiders, and I think that's really going to benefit Josh Jacobs. And I don't think that Josh Jacobs is going anywhere next season. I just don't think they view him being paid as like a top 5 running back.
Right.
When you look at how much they would pay him on a franchise tag, he's not going to get that in a multi-year contract, right? I think he'd be good for $10 million a year, maybe, right around that range, maybe a little bit more, depending on how he plays this season. But at the same time, I mean, the franchise tag or the 5th-year option pays you like a top 10 running back in the NFL, and I think they're going to be very worrisome about paying somebody like that amount of money on a 1-year deal, because that's just going to eat up so much cap. Why not sign him to a 3-4 year extension, and your early cap is going to be $7-8 million a year, and then toward the back half of his contract, when you can kind of cut bait if things aren't working out, if the injuries start to pile up, you're not forcing yourself into this huge contract for a 1-year deal for a running back.
Which is also absolutely insane that you're talking about $10 million a year as not top dollar for the running backs this year. Like, how long ago was it we were talking about Melvin Gordon holding out for that exact type of contract, $10 million a year, 3 years, didn't want it, thought he deserved more, and now we're talking about the 11th best running back in the game, arguably. That's a fair price tag for him. It's just crazy. The contracts go up so high every year. It's just baffling to me.
So now there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 running backs making over $12 million a year this season. Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Aaron Jones, and Joe Mixon are your only running backs making over that. The only the next running back on that list is making about $8 million a year, and that's Saquon Barkley, because he's still on a rookie contract as a top 5 pick from a few seasons back. So running backs just don't get paid anyways unless you're a superstar. And then also, how many of those guys have dealt with injuries? I know Dalvin Cook has, Christian McCaffrey has, Derrick Henry has the biggest workload, but he does, toward the end of the season, always find some significant injuries and ends up missing some time. Those running backs, that tread starts to come up and wear thin. So I wouldn't pay Josh Jacobs a split of that 12 million to 16 million between Christian McCaffrey and Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon. It just doesn't make sense. Kind of moving on, I guess we kind of skipped quarterback Derek Carr. Where has Derek Carr kind of pushed his name in terms of rankings among the league starters? Because he had a really good season last year with no offensive line, and his tight end Darren Waller was out most of the season. They were missing Josh Jacobs for big chunks. Really, people need to give credit to Derek Carr because he carried their offense, which was not supposed to be very good last year, mainly just throwing to Hunter Renfrow as his key target, because Brian Edwards, they traded him away because he wasn't being productive for them. And they did not have a great offensive line outside of Colton Miller.
Yeah, you're asking me where do I rank Derek Carr?
Yeah, but has he kind of improved his stake, his ranking among the league's top quarterbacks for the season he had last year?
For me, I think he just solidifies himself to where he is, which is as right outside of the top 10. I think he's really good. I just don't. I go back and forth with this. I think we saw the best version of Derek Carr we've ever seen last season. I'll give him that. I think he's gotten better since he's been in the league. I just don't see him as an elite quarterback by any means. I see him. Let's see.
So he had 4,800 yards last season, 23 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions, which is kind of a high number, a little bit.
Yeah.
Herbert had pretty close to the same number of interceptions last year, had more yards, had more touchdowns. And then you also look at what the Raiders went through last year. Like he as a leader, right? Like that goes a long way. Maybe not just pure arm talent, but if you take everything together, you take what he had to deal with the whole head coach change. There was a lot of off-field problems for the Raiders last year. Look at their wide receiver who crashed his car and killed another person, and he still managed to carry this team to the playoffs. And it was not a good team in terms of high-end talent, pretty much anywhere on the roster. And he was able to carry the offense. Whether or not he has the stats to back it up, Derek Carr is a winner with the right pieces in place.
Sure. No, I get it. And I think he played in another area. You would be able to put him in that top tier, best of the best quarterbacks. But we're playing in a league right now where there are so many good quarterbacks. And so I kind of have Derek Carr right under the Deshaun Watsons, right under Kyler Murray, but just slightly better than the Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, the Tannehills of world. So I think he's middle of the pack. I think he's the best of that option. I would probably take him over Kyler Murray and Deshaun, definitely over Deshaun Watson. I think you can make an argument right now over Kyler Murray. I love Kyler's athleticism, but you have to go back to impacting football games. And Derek Carr, for whatever it is, his teammates love him. He's a great captain. He's a great motivator. And that's a big part of the quarterback position. Beyond just arm, beyond making just the throws, do your guys believe in you? And I've never heard anyone say worked with Derek Carr, who's been a teammate of him, say anything bad about him. They love that guy. I can't put him in the top 10. I think he's right below that, but not at a fault of his own. I think he's a good guy. I think he's a good player. I think he's just in a era of football where there's just so many phenomenal quarterbacks.
And in a really good conference as well. I mean, being a quarterback in the AFC conference is going to be tough. Moving over to the wide receivers, we did talk about Davante Adams, superstar. I don't think we need to talk about him anymore. Hunter Renfrow kind of took that step into just that underneath superstardom, right? He's not going to be the flashiest breaking. He's not going to get behind the defense or anything like that. He's just a really solid route runner who gets open. Really, really good third down target. Really, really good red zone target. He's really come into his own. I just don't think he's hit that superstardom yet. Wide receiver Demarcus Robinson is going to play outside of him. Hunter Renfrow is going to play mainly in the slot. And then they'll have Davante Adams move inside and out in different sets. They also have Keelan Cole, Mac Hollins, and Tyrone Johnson, which makes up a really difficult wide receiver 4 battle between the 4 of them. And then they also have Darren Waller, who's one of the best pure catching tight ends. I don't think he's all that special as a blocker. I think they leave a lot of that work to Foster Moreau, and Jacob Hollister is going to get a lot of work there as well. But Darren Waller is a really difficult vertical threat for them. A lot of people don't really have him in that top 3 range. A lot of people do. They think that he's just kind of outside of the Travis Kelce's, the San Francisco tight end that I can't think right now, and the Baltimore tight end Andrews.
And Mark Andrews, which I think is ridiculous. I think Waller is right there with all 3 of those guys.
He is, in terms of his pass catching ability, his vertical route running, his hands. I just don't think he is where those other 3 guys are in terms of their blocking ability, which is why I think a lot of people drop him down. He's not the biggest, most physical athlete. He is a quick twitch, fast, vertical threat. I think that from a stats perspective, he's right there with all of them. He's just not at that same level, right? In terms of that, he's not all the well-rounded. He's one of the best at what he is good at, but he's not fully well-rounded in my opinion.
That's an interesting distinction, like that he is a top tier pass catcher at the tight end position, but not a top tier tight end, because there's more to it than just catching the ball, right? So as far as receivers go who play tight end, I think he's one of the best. Those other 3 guys are all around tight ends, can do everything that you need from the position. So I hear where you're coming from that standpoint.
They ended up signing Jacob Johnson from New England. I think that has a lot to do with their new head coach, Mike McDaniels. They got rid of Alec Ingold, who's been one of the better run blocking, just pure blocking fullbacks in the league. Jacob Johnson, I think, offers more special teams value, which is part of the reason why they chose to go with him over Alec Ingold. And that familiarity of how New England likes to use their fullbacks. They're very useful in their style of offense, one of the few remaining true fullbacks that we have in the NFL. And I think Jacob Johnson is kind of just moving into his own. He's going to play a big special teams role for them. Moving on to their offensive line.
I just wanted to comment a little bit on Jacob Johnson because I thought his story was interesting. He was born in Germany.
I didn't know that.
Was a linebacker his first seasons at Tennessee, and then finished his career as a tight end. So he has some soft hands. He's not a really like a yard after catch guy, except he did average nearly 11 yards per reception last year, but only on 5 targets. Either way, soft hands, can catch you the ball, can move the chains for you. I just think
he's athletic.
It is. He is. He's an interesting player, but young guy, only 28. It'll be his 4th season. It'll be interesting to see how they utilize him because he has yet to carry the ball a single time in his career. I just thought that was interesting.
I mean, how many fullbacks outside of Juszczyk? How many guys carry the ball except for Juszczyk?
But I guess my point is that he has 16 targets in the receiving game, 13 receptions, has not even got a carry. So that at a running back position, at the fullback position of all things. So that just
you said it yourself. He doesn't offer much run after the catch ability in terms of like, those days of fullbacks taking that fullback dive are gone. Matter of fact, they don't even give them to fullbacks anymore. They'll give them to a 350-pound offensive tackle or defensive tackle and let him kind of bully his way in. I very rarely do you even have fullbacks who have that Mike Allstott ability, right? Like that is so long gone. I can't even remember last time I saw a fullback outside of Juszczyk actually even get a carry. And Juszczyk is more of a threat as a receiver than he is as a running back. We have one on our roster though, so who knows? Maybe we'll see some.
I'd like to give him the ball. Yeah.
Xander Horvath.
I'm excited.
Has some has some ability there as a fullback that can carry and hit the hole.
He's exciting. I'm excited to get him involved. It'll be interesting to see how Lombardi wants to utilize him, because he's never had a fullback with that type of. Well, I don't think he's really utilizes a whole lot of fullbacks in his New
No, he
Orleans system.
hasn't.
And then we kind of faded out. We didn't even use Neighbors last year. It was kind of that H-back role, and we used that even sparingly. So
We
it'll
used
be
it for
interesting.
Steven Anderson, as a matter of fact. So
Right.
Lombardi likes to use tight ends as fullbacks. Has been kind of what he's done through his whole time with New England. It'll be interesting because we do have, and it's very rare that you even see fullbacks who can run the ball anymore. And Xander Horvath, getting off topic a little bit, but Xander Horvath has that ability, and to be able to see that, it's kind of exciting. Bring some old style of football back. Moving on to the offensive line, Colton Miller is going to be their offensive tackle, probably one of the better graded offensive tackles in the NFL right now. Denzel Good and Jermaine Illuminor will be your guards. Andre James will be center. And right now they have Alex Leatherwood slated to play right tackle again, which is interesting. We'll see if that ends up working out for them, but they don't have anybody else outside of Brandon Parker who can take those snaps. And I don't know much about Brandon Parker, so I feel like they kind of have to be bought in on Alex Leatherwood playing tackle, because they don't really have anybody else on the depth chart. They have some depth at guard, John Simpson, and then Dylan Parham, who I think is going to find his way starting probably at right guard in place of Jermaine Illuminor. Alex Leatherwood's the guy there. He's stuck there, and they are gonna see what happens this season. They moved him to guard last year after having a horrendous start at right tackle.
He was struggling. They must have a lot of faith in those guys, because I feel like that was their biggest weakness last season, and they did nothing to.
They're running it back.
They did nothing. Added some potential camp battle with Brandon Parker, but you drafted both of them. Colton Miller's not going anywhere, and Leatherwood you drafted so high. You need him to pan out, or you need him to just fail miserably, so you have that, so you're able to move away from him, because there's no option. There's no in-between option, right? You drafted that guy very highly to be a very good player for you. He hasn't panned out so far. He's not going anywhere, in my opinion. You gotta have to figure out what you have in him. Yeah, you don't really know what you have in Leatherwood. So I think it's interesting they didn't do much to address that offensive line. I think you're going to see Derek Carr running around for his life again. I think the good thing for him is he has a couple other threats to throw the ball off to.
I will say that all those guys are a year older. They're all going to be a little bit more developed. They can't be as bad as they were last season. And they did technically address it when they signed Dylan Parham, who I think is going to be – he's going to find a place to start on this offensive line, and it's probably going to be in Illuminor's spot, because I think Denzel Good has enough there. But, I mean, they're tied to Alex Leatherwood for at least another 2 seasons. And the easiest way to develop a player, in my opinion, is throw them into the fire and let them figure it out eventually, or cut bait in a couple years. But when that draft pick was made, I mean, Alex Leatherwood with Alabama, he was a really, really good player. I thought he was drafted a little bit high. He was drafted really high. Like, let's talk about that for a second. Like, this guy was a mid-second round to a third-round pick by a lot of people. He has the length. He has guys who have tools get drafted much higher than their ability and their talent sometimes. And he's super long and lengthy. He's a huge human being. I understand why they were so high on him, but he was not developed enough to go and take that role. But you played Alabama. I know you don't scout the helmet, you scout the player, but Alabama offensive tackles always seem to pan out eventually. So we'll see how it goes. I think they're still a couple seasons away from being developed enough to, but hey, they made the playoffs with this offensive line, right?
Right. Yeah. We'll see if it'll hold up, though, in an AFC West that is completely revamped their defenses, a lot of additional pass rushers, have entered the division. Lots of DBs that make that a little harder to get rid of the football. So we'll see if that line can hold up, because those AFC West defenses in particular, and the rest of the AFC and NFC West for that matter, really good defenses. So we'll see if those 5 can hold up.
Well, I'm excited to see Bosa lined up over Alex Leatherwood again. That'll be fun.
I'm all for that. That sounds like a 6-sack game.
Max Crosby, their edge rusher he was like a middle to late round draft pick for them a couple seasons ago. It's really panned out really well, way better than anyone would have imagined. Crosby was drafted in the same class as Clelin Ferrell and has started in his place, was drafted rounds after Clelin Ferrell. Ferrell was like a 4th overall pick. And to see really his story, like he's got such a great story with his background and him actually like making it, getting clean, all of that. Great success story. I actually really do like the player. He's a fun player to watch. Overall, he's just a highlight reel. And he just manhandles anybody he plays against. They also signed Chandler Jones from Arizona. Chandler Jones, getting a little bit older. I thought he was a little bit overpaid. I understand why they did it, because Chandler Jones has that superstar talent. He's going to sell seats just for people around the league. Really respect Chandler Jones for a reason. Mm-hmm. He still had like 10 sacks last year. His pressures were down. Played in Arizona, which ran more of a 3-4. I think Chandler Jones is going to play with his hand in the dirt a lot more than he has in previous seasons, which will be a little bit interesting. But, I mean, this guy's a veteran. He's going to be able to make that change easily. Clelin Ferrell is still their backup. Eventually, this guy is going to get cut or traded or something. He needs a fresh start somewhere else, because he has no chance of really getting a whole lot of playing time. He's going to be a rotational type of player, but for a player that was drafted 4th overall, you're expecting a lot more from Clelin Ferrell than what you've gotten. And then they also have Malcolm Kuntz, who will be the other rotational piece for them there. What is this pairing of Max Crosby and Chandler Jones like among the top 10 edge rushing duos in the NFL right now?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think so.
5.
I'll put him in the top 5. I think Max Crosby is that guy, the new up and comer into the the Bosas, who are we going with?
Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa. You look
Bosas, T.J. Watt, and my guy from Cleveland, Myles Garrett.
Yeah, so I think Crosby's right there with all of them.
I got him right in there, and then I have Chandler Jones was that guy, I would say, like 5 years ago. Was that 5th guy in a really good edge class. So I think he's at the tail end of his career. But a guy who's racked up 107, I think it's 107.5 sacks over the last 10 seasons, just productive, consistent. You know what you're getting with Chandler Jones, and it's a double-digit sack season or more. So I really see this signing as I really see it as a rebuttal to the Chargers signing Khalil Mack. Like, they have a legit superstar pass duo. We need to do something. Who's the next best target? And to me, the next best guy on the market was Chandler Jones. So I think it's a rebuttal move, but I think it's a really good move. I don't think the Raiders have had a pass rush duo this potent in a long time. At least I can't remember one. And then you look at the guys inside. I think they got a solid defensive line. It'll be interesting, now that they moving away from Gus Bradley. I forget their new defensive coordinator's name, but it'll be interesting to see his wrinkle on this defense and how Crosby and Jones respond.
I can talk about him real quick. So Patrick Graham, he enters his first season with the Raiders as their defensive coordinator, brings with him 13 years of NFL experience. He spent the last 2 seasons as the defensive coordinator with the New York Giants, having previously coached defensive line with them. So he's a defensive line coach, which means Crosby and Chandler and Clelin Ferrell should get even better. He earned his first defensive coordinator position with the Dolphins in 2019 after spending the 2017 season with the Packers. The Dolphins had a really dangerous defense there for a while, and so had the Packers. He began his coaching career in New England, so you're already looking at that as his familiarity with the head coach, Mike McDaniels. He spent 7 seasons with the Patriots from 2009 to 2015, working with Josh McDaniels. Prior to entering the NFL, Graham spent 7 seasons coaching collegiately at Notre Dame, which tells you everything you need to know. So he's got the right path to where he's at right now, and it makes a lot of sense. They're going to run a true 4-3 defense, but I mean, you look at the Patriots defenses and how much trouble they've caused. I mean, this guy is a proven winner. Super Bowls are in he's got a couple of them on his finger just from his time with the Patriots. So I think that he's going to be a phenomenal coach for them.
Which I think is a big contributor to why the Raiders are just mediocre year in, year out, is their lack of elite coaching, their lack of culture. I haven't seen, a Raider culture has been non-existent for the last 10 seasons. So you got 2 very, very young coaches coming in to an up-and-coming roster that feels like they have a lot to prove still. I think that's a good recipe, but we'll see. That they Raiders always seem to fumble expectations, and I think a big part of that is their lack of coaching. Always top in the league in penalties. So we'll see if that's something that those new young coaches can help clean up over there in Las Vegas.
On the interior of the defensive line, it's going to start with Jonathan Hankins and Bilal Nichols, who have been really solid run stuffers, really solid against the pass. Really, their interior defensive line is stacked. Kyle Pico, Vernon Butler have been starters for a long time. They drafted Matthew Butler from Tennessee, who we were both really high on, and Neil Farrell, who we were both really high on. And then Andrew Billings, which is kind of an under-the-radar name. So Andrew Billings was last year spent time with the Browns. Before that, he was with the Cincinnati Bengals. He's got a lot of starting experience, kind of more of a true nose tackle. He's 6'1", 328 pounds. He was a former 4th-round pick in 2016, so he's still very young. There is a legit 8 guys on that interior, that defensive tackle area, and there's not going to be 8 spots available. There will probably be 5 at most, maybe 6. And so, I mean, Neil Farrell, Matthew Butler probably aren't going to the practice squad. They'll get picked up real quick. They may end up cutting an extra nose tackle because they may not. It's just not their style of defense. It's kind of surprising that they signed Andrew Billings when you're looking for guys that are a little bit lighter. But in heavy sets and goal line situations, and you want to beef up, you need to have at least one guy there who can kind of stand over the zero and control the line of scrimmage from right there and let everybody else around him make plays. That could be Andrew Billings. That could be Kyle Pico. Kyle Pico's a bigger guy as well. I don't know who's going to make this roster out of this bunch, but it's going to be a tight group, and they really, really stacked up on the interior of the defensive line.
Yeah, Pico, Butler, just big bodies. They're going to be very hard to run the football on, and very tough when you need to sneak it in there on the goal line. Lots of bodies, and then they're going to be really clearing up things for those edge rushers to do damage. So up front, Raiders defense looks pretty solid.
At least on the defensive line, it does for sure. Pico is kind of built like Christian Covington. Kind of a guy who's just got the size, maybe not the weight behind him, but he's got the size and the strength to really match up really well. And that's going to be a force for them for sure. Moving on to their linebackers, I'm waiting for my ESPN depth chart thing to reload. Give me a quick second. They got Denzel Perryman, who really had his breakout year last year, had a ton of tackles, played much better than he ever did with the Chargers. Jayon Brown, who has been a mainstay. He's expected to be their middle linebacker. Denzel Perryman expected to be their Will. And Divine Diablo is expected to be their Sam. I kind of feel like that's a little backwards. I feel like being the Will, you want the more athletic player. That's probably going to be Divine Diablo. And then your force is going to be your Denzel Perryman playing over the tight end while they're on the line of scrimmage. They also have some depth there as well. Micah Kaiser, Kenny Young, not over the radar, the top players that you'd expect to be kind of mainstays for injury, but Micah Kaiser has playing experience. So does Kenny Young. I really, really liked the success story that Denzel Perryman came up with last year, going over to the Panthers, getting traded back to the Raiders to go play with Gus Bradley. Gus Bradley left. I think he's now coaching for Indianapolis. Might be their defensive coordinator there now. But Denzel Perryman really had a breakout year, and he's a player that I've always really liked. Just in terms of, he's just a funny dude. You ever hear him mic'd up or anything like that? Really coming into his own.
I've always liked him. He was that was a tough departure. Watching him and watching Casey Hayward leave was tough, but Perriman hurt because I feel like we were just in getting. I could feel this season coming for him in 2021, and I felt like we would have really utilized him in the middle of our defense last year. He had 154 tackles in 2021.
That's insane.
He had 350 with us in 6 seasons in San Diego and LA. That is ridiculous.
You know, where he really started coming into his own when he was rotating in with Kenneth Murray his rookie season. And I mean, you think of he had a bunch of big hits, like huge hits. And the one that I'm thinking of that comes to mind right now is the Joe Mixon hit that caused the fumble, or the Mekhi Becton putting Mekhi Becton on his ass. That was insane to go and see a player who's like 255 pounds knock down a 370-pound offensive tackle. Is just he's a hitter. I think his struggles have always been against the pass, which is kind of where you're going to you're really looking for the Gerald Everett Denzel Perryman matchup next season as being one of those that could really hurt the Raiders quite a bit.
That's going to be tough for Denzel. That's going to be a tough matchup for sure.
That's going to be a huge matchup, but Perryman really came into his own. He's always been a really, really good run defender, always really good at sifting through traffic, finding the ball carrier. He makes some really, really jaw-dropping tackles, some hits that just lay people out. Coming out of Miami, that's kind of what Miami does. They're hitters. I really do miss Perryman. He's not a fit on our roster, but the man, the human being, the player, always a fun player to watch.
I agree.
They traded for Rocky Sin, who kind of has struggled throughout his career. He was a high draft pick. I want to say he was like an early second, late first for the Indianapolis Colts. Finally going to get another chance to start. He sat out almost all of last season with some injuries. Had a really good rookie season kind of to start, but he had all these injuries that piled on. Trayvon Mullen has been exposed quite a bit in his career. He's one of the mainstays of their cornerback room, just because everything around him has been moving around quite a bit. Jonathan Abram at the safety position is terrible. He's a horrible player. He's a dirty player, but he's also really bad. And then Trayvon Moehrig has been he was a really good draft pick for them. I really like Moehrig coming out of TCU. Playing that free safety position in Gus Bradley's defense is not easy. Everybody struggles with it. You're asked to cover a lot of ground, and he did a really good job with what he was asked to do. With a new defensive coordinator, I think you're going to see him utilized a little bit closer to what was the Oregon safety that one played for the Patriots, and he ended up retiring like 2 or 3 seasons ago. He's going to be utilized a lot like him. Trying to think of the player 2019 Patriots depth chart.
Safety?
We'll get it. Yeah, he played safety, and he's been really, really good for them.
Out of Oregon.
Patrick Chung. So he's going to be utilized a lot like Patrick Chung, I think. which I'm excited to see his development. Maybe not against us, but again, another player I've been really high on. And then the last two players you can talk about for their secondary. Nate Hobbs was a really, really good slot defender. He's going to miss some games this season due to a DUI he received toward the end of last year. That DUI hadn't been processed yet, so he was able to still play in the postseason. Kind of an idiot, dumb, bonehead move after what happened to the wide receiver. But, I mean, you're going to have to pay your dues eventually. Anthony Everett, coming over from Baltimore, has been a really good rotational secondary player for them as well.
Yeah, and they got a little depth there. Brought in Darius Phillips also this year. I think all three of those guys, once Hobbs gets back, Hobbs gets back, I think you're going to see Darius Phillips, Nate Hobbs, and Everett kind of all battle it out, trying to get. I think Hobbs is solidified in that corner or in that slot position. I think you're going to see Everett and Phillips kind of compete for that second outside corner position, opposite side of Rock Ya-Sin, because like you were saying, I think the Trayon Mullen, it will be good for you if he's your fourth or fifth cornerback. If you're going to use him as a depth option at this point, I think you're in a spot. Rely on him to play, guard your the opponent's second best player. I don't think is a good spot for him, and he's going to continue to get exposed if given those starter minutes. I think Rock Ya-Sin, change of scenery, good for him. I think he is a guy kind of just not really performing up to his expectations, but a lot of times guys like that, all they need is a new uniform, a new coach telling them what to do, and that's really all it needs to kind of upstart his career. So we'll see what you get in Rock Ya-Sin. I thought that was a good signing for them. I really like that player. And then beyond, but that's really it. Jonathan Abram, horrible player. Trayvon Moehrig, I think, the jury's still out on that pick. He's a young guy. Like you were saying, he's asked to do a lot in a very tough system. They're going to move away from that Gus Bradley system to probably give him a little more leniency. Not going to have to be relied on as heavily as he was as the last ring of defense in the Gus Bradley system. But we'll see if he can kind of progress. But Abram and Mullen are absolutely horrible. Should not be starting in any NFL roster. But I'm happy that they're on my least favorite team in the league right now, which is the Las Vegas Raiders, and it always is.
And then moving on to their special teams units, Daniel Carlson has been a pretty reliable, sturdy place kicker for them. Ended up winning them the game last year that sent them to the playoffs. AJ Cole has been an above average punter as well. Hunter Renfrow is going to be their really solid punt returner. Not a guy that's going to find a whole lot of wiggle room, but he's a very reliable catcher, not going to be muffing very many punts. And then their kick return is really where they're going to kind of struggle. Right now, they have Kenyon Drake and Tyron Johnson listed as their kick returners. I think you might see Zamir White get some opportunities there. They're probably not going to put Hunter Renfrow in that kind of situation where he can go and get injured. Maybe Keelan Cole gets a turn, maybe Brandon Bolden, but they really don't have a player that's going to go and break it for 98 yards. It's just not going to happen for them. They just don't have the speed. And I think that's really what this offense is missing, is just speed on their offense, because they don't have anybody that can really stretch the field at all. The last thing I kind of wanted to talk about that we kind of skipped is I wanted to talk a little bit more about their coaching staff. I did talk about their defensive coordinator. Mick Lombardi is going to be their offensive coordinator. He embarks on his first season as the offensive coordinator with the Raiders in 2022, joins the Silver and Black, having spent the previous 3 years in New England, serving as assistant quarterbacks coach in 2019, before being promoted to wide receivers coach last year. Prior to joining the Patriots, he served as an offensive assistant with the New York Jets from 17 to 18, spent 4 seasons with the 49ers from 2013 to 2016, holding multiple positions during his tenure, including assistant to the head coach, offensive assistant, and defensive quality control coach. He entered the NFL with the Patriots as coming from the scouting realm in 2011 and 12. He began his coaching career at Fordham as a student assistant coach in 2009. So he's got about 10 years of experience. It's going to be his first offensive coordinator position, which is going to be a little bit challenging for them. They may struggle a little bit. I don't think it's going to matter because I think Josh Daniels is calling the plays. What are your thoughts on that? You think Josh Daniels is the offensive coordinator for this group, or do you think he's going to give up play calling?
I think it's one of those things. I don't think he starts delegating, right? I think he starts with wanting to put his handprints on everything. He's a new guy. It's his first shot, and he's earned that right? There's a reason he's the head coach, and these other guys are offensive coordinators. I don't think he thinks about it like that as like a beat my chest, I'm the guy kind of thing. But
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, is he going to be the Andy Reid and being the play caller in game day?
I think so. I think it starts like that because he has put in the work to be this head coach. So I think it's his baby, right? He wants to nurture it exactly to what he envisions it to be. And now I think if you see them struggle out the gate, I think you could see them one of the quicker teams to kind of switch things up. Now, because they are so young, because they are unproven, I think you could see it maybe, if they struggle out the gate, win 2 games in the first 7 weeks. I could see him turning the reins over, but I think out the gate, I think it's McDaniels' play call, and he's going to run those plays until teams show that they can stop them. I think it out the gate. I think it's all McDaniels.
I don't think that he's going to hand over that at all. I think he's going to be a career-long
not at all
play caller. I think that's what he wants to do. He's going to be an Andy Reid. That is what he's known for. He's one of the better offensive-minded head coaches, and I think that he really likes calling the plays. He didn't give up the play calling duties when he was the head coach in Denver. Let me give you a little bit of background on Josh McDaniels, but I think without a doubt he is going to be the play caller always and forever. Never going to give that up. He's in his 22nd year of coaching, which is crazy because he looks way younger.
He looks like he's 23. Coaching.
He does. He's a handsome man, that's for sure. This is his first season as the head coach of the Raiders. Mark Davis announced his new head coach on January 31st, before the season had even ended. McDaniels was named the New England offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach in January 2012. He's been their offensive coordinator there since then. So it's been 10 years since he was the coach of the Denver Broncos, which is crazy to think. 12 seasons as offensive coordinator. He's guided the offense to 8 top 10 rankings, including the NFL's #1 ranked offense in 2007, 2012, and 2017. So this guy is no joke. Tom Brady was elected to the Pro Bowl 8 times underneath him. Eclipsed 4,000 passing yards 8 times. McDaniels has been part of 6 Super Bowl championships with the Patriots, 3 of them as the offensive coordinator. So there's a lot of experience. There's a winning culture he's bringing to the Raiders, which is not good for anybody in the AFC West. His quarterbacks, just think about all of the records Tom Brady has. That kind of just speaks for itself. And a lot of people think, Tom Brady's the greatest ever, but Tom Brady's had phenomenal coaching his entire career with the Patriots, not just with Bill Belichick, but with a lot of position coaches. How many coaches have you seen leave the Patriots for head coaching jobs? The Bill Belichick tree it's spread far and wide. And while it's Bill Belichick gets all of the credit, how many of those coaches were developed specifically by Josh McDaniels? So Josh McDaniels is also developing these coaches, which is going to be great for a lot of the coaches underneath him. You can expect that the Raiders overall are going to have a phenomenal coaching staff his entire tenure there. So just keep that in mind. I already talked about all the Super Bowls, all of the passing records. Tom Brady owes a lot of his development to Josh McDaniels as well. I think that this guy has been just waiting for the right opportunity, the right system. He's had plenty plenty of coaching opportunities over the years and continued to turn them down to stay in New England until he found something that he believed was the right fit. He did believe this Raiders team was the right fit. I don't think he was anticipating the load up of all the talent in the AFC. It's the AFC West in particular, but the AFC also. So he's going to have a tough go, but I think he's got a lot of pieces in place. It's a young team. The Raiders are very, very young, and he basically overhauled the entire roster to fit his vision of the team. So that's all I have to really say about the Raiders. Kind of, what do you think that their record is? How good do you think they can be? I can kind of go through their schedule here in a bit. But how good are the Raiders going to be?
I have such a hard time kind of pegging this team. It seems every year this team, the talent on the roster, the influx of talent in the coaching position, I think is better than it's ever been in a long, long time for that organization. But it is in this organization's DNA to never live up to their expectations. So I'm kind of just looking at this team, trying to figure out where are they going to mess this one up. I feel like it's just a matter of time. I love that,
I don't think they're going to mess it up.
You think they're going to be good?
I think they're going to be much better because I think that they have something that they've been lacking for many, many years, and that is a coaching staff that is competent, right?
No, it's tough to say. But because I do think they're going to be much better than they've been in recent years. I just don't think they're better than even with that, I still think they're the worst team in the division. I think
I agree on paper.
Which is not really a knock either, because all three of the other three teams in the division are elite Super Bowl contending teams. I think they're going to be much better than they've been in the last 10 seasons. I just don't. They just got really good when the rest of the league and the rest of their division got, even that much more better. So it's just a really tough thing to pick. I want to just say we're going to see the same old Raiders. But 9-7 team last year was no joke. They kind of really battled for that, especially with all of the off the field issues that they had to deal with. That was a really resilient bunch, and I think a lot of
they got rid of all that resiliency though. They overhauled the entire roster, so a lot of those players, that leadership that kind of kept everybody together is gone.
Yeah, but I feel like they're gonna. That's their whole thing, though. They always find something to rally on. It's always us versus them mentality, because everyone hates the Raiders. So I feel like they're gonna find something. Josh McDaniels is too good of a leader to not at least try to have that rollover. I just taking a look at their schedule, though, I just don't see how they surpass 9-7. So I think that to me is.
So let's read this off real quick, right? So week 1, they play the Chargers. Is that a win or a loss?
I gotta go loss.
Okay,
we gotta get them back.
Okay, so
blowout.
It's gonna be a loss. I agree there. Do you think that they can beat the Cardinals?
No, I don't think. I think they start the season 0-3.
So they're gonna lose Chargers, Cardinals, Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go and they play Denver at home. You think they split with Denver at least? Can we give them a split there?
Oh, that one's in Las Vegas. Yeah, I'll give them that one.
All right, so they're 1-3. Then they play the Chiefs
1-4
on Monday Night Football in Kansas City. Prime time in Kansas City is going to be tough.
I got a 1-4 out the gate into their bye, and then you're going to see Las Vegas fans kind of start to worry a bit, just like they did last season.
So their next couple of games are pretty lenient. So then they go to Houston, or they play Houston at home. I think we can call that a win.
Mm-hmm.
The Saints, are you high on the Saints? Are you down on the Saints? Who are the Saints right now?
I think that's going to be. I think you're going to see the Saints as one of the surprises of the season this
Not
year.
with Jameis Winston.
I
No way.
I like Jameis. I don't think
And
it's
they
going to be.
offloaded so much talent because of their cap issues. I think this is a year where they're getting cap healthy. They're going to be offloading some of those massive contracts. They have a whole new coaching staff in place. I don't think the Saints are going to be that good. I'm going to have them beat the Saints.
I think the Saints are going to be a surprising team, but I think just because of where the Raiders are at in this scenario, I think they do beat New Orleans in New Orleans.
Okay, Jacksonville. I think we can call that a win. So they're on a 3-game win streak right now. They're getting hot.
Yeah, 3 and
Right,
4.
so that's 4 wins. So Texans, Saints,
Oh yeah,
Jaguars, and Broncos.
4
All
and
right.
4.
Colts are going to be a tough matchup.
Beat down Indy in that one.
All right. Then they go to the Broncos in the end of November, so you may get a little bit of snow potentially. That might be a hard matchup for them.
I think they dropped that one too.
All right. Then they go play in Seattle. I don't think Seattle's that good right now.
No,
So that could be a win there.
I think that's a win.
Then they have a two-game tough matchup with the Chargers and the Rams. They play the Chargers at home, and then they play the Rams away. Sorry, they play both games. They're just going to stay in Los Angeles because week 13, week 14, they play in the same stadium, one against the Chargers, one against the Rams.
No. I think week 13 is in Vegas, and then week 14 is
You're
at
right.
SoFi.
Yeah, you're right. You think they win either of those games?
No. West Coast. Maybe if they were still on the coast, they might.
All right. Here's an interesting matchup. They play New England at home, week 15. So they're not going to be playing in the cold. Nobody knows the Patriots better than Mike McDaniels.
No, I think it's a really close one. I think that's a close, grinded out game, but I see the Raiders kind of squeaking it out, just as the new kid on the block, kind of pass the reins, Belichick. And I see that as a game that the media is going to hype up. Sunday night football. That's going to be a good game. I'm definitely tuning into that one. But I think Vegas has the edge, at least on paper, and at least in this hypothetical scenario.
So we're at 6 wins. Then week 16 they play the Steelers. Steelers still have a really good defense. I don't know about their offense right now. I think they're going to have a strong run game. Their offensive line is starting to come together. Still a long ways from being competing. I think that's going to be a close game for them as well. I'll give them the win there. So they've won 7 games, and then their final 2 matchups are against the Niners and Chiefs.
Loss. So we got them at 7 and 10.
7 and 10, and that's assuming that they can't squeak out wins against some good teams, right? Any given Sunday,
right?
So they're a fringe playoff, kind of probably more outside. They'll probably be eliminated by like week 16, week 17, somewhere around there is where they could potentially be eliminated. But they win 1 or 2 of those games that they're not supposed to, and we're looking at them potentially sneaking in again. So are they kind of the same team as they were last year, unexpectedly?
We'll have to see, because I mean, I could really just taking a look at doing this with you, I could see them getting anything from 6 wins to potentially 11 wins if they put it all together. If they do what they're supposed to do, they could get 11 wins in this season.
I think that the thing that is the most suspect right now is their secondary.
Yeah, I think they're going 8 and 9, or is it 8 and 9? Yeah, it would be 8 and 9 or 9 and 8.
7 and 10, 8 and 9, yeah.
I think they're going 8 and 9 or 9 and 8. And they're just it's going to be 2 games. They're going to drop 2 games they shouldn't, and they're going to win 2 games that they shouldn't. And they're going to be right in it.
Fringe playoff right there. They're going to be in the run because I feel like a lot of the AFC is going to be splitting, and you're going to have one of those, or we talked about it last week, we're going to have one of those games that they just squeak into somehow.
They always do.
Yeah.
And
So, I think they're going to be much better. And to be honest, I even think that they might be better overall than the Broncos, mainly because the
Interesting.
Broncos coaching staff isn't in a place where I think that the Raiders, and I think that bad teams on paper with good coaching surprise. So if that's
fair.
the case, the Raiders could be better than the Broncos purely for the coaching staff. They might not be as talented on paper, but teams that are disciplined find a way. And I feel like the Raiders this season, they're going to be disciplined. I think they're going to be a lot more disciplined than the Broncos. And I think that's going to make all the difference.
And just hearing those words together, disciplined Raiders, like that's kind of scary.
But the
they've
coaching
had
staff is going to have it in place, right?
You'd hope so. I mean, that's their job, right? But it's like one of those untamable horses. Like they've never been tamed. So we'll have to see. Maybe McDaniels is the Raider whisperer that this team has been needing.
I guess we'll find out.
I still want to beat them down. I'm sick of them.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to beat them down.
I want to beat them down.
Next week, I think we're going to have kind of a fun episode. We're going to do a Chargers all-time greats draft, where it's going to be my team versus your team. We're going to go through the whole draft. I'm going to send you a draft board, Zach, of kind of players that I put together, and then we'll get your guys' take on who has the better roster. Just some kind of fun before the preseason hits, before training camp hits.
We're so close.
We're so close.
We're about to
A couple
put the
weeks
pads
away.
on.
And then right around July 30th and the first week of August, I'm going to be on my honeymoon. So we'll be taking a short mini break. Maybe, Zach, you can find somebody to bring on, maybe a guest or something like that. But I'm going to be taking some time off for my wedding, which I'm stoked about. So
yeah, we'll play it by ear. I'm not going to sign up for anything yet, but I think I might have something in the works.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Give us a follow on YouTube. We are on YouTube now. If you're listening to this on Spotify, we have a lot of things coming down. Haven't even had a chance to really talk about all 22, but we'll get there.
All right.